I'm Terrence James, and the question you probably have is why in the world would I pick a Honda Civic Si as my car of the year, especially in light of the fact that we were really lucky this year and got to review some amazing vehicles like the Camaro 1LE and the Challenger Scat Pack and the EV6 GT, among others. So what I want to do is go over the rules of this thing, which there really is none, and give you a spoiler alert, which is it's probably the same answer I gave of why I picked the WRX last year. And I want to give you my 4 runners-up, because there was some actual great vehicles in the running as well. So here we go. All right, so now rules. As we said, there really is none. Now, because the channel is fairly new, only 2 years now, and we appreciate all the support, but we're only putting out a video every couple weeks, essentially, maybe every week and a half, every 2 weeks. So we don't have a huge sample size yet of all the different vehicles we would need to have to categorize them, like SUVs and things like that, sports cars, even though we did get a little smattering of all those. But really, what I want to do is just what vehicle kind of stood out to me as something that was a lot better than I was expecting, or something that I think they should make more of type thing. And that is essentially how we led to our choice in the last 2 years of our review or car of the year. Now, with neutral reviews, if you're unfamiliar with our channel, it's real reviews for real decisions. But what we also try to do, and kind of how it started as well, is try to find the fun in every drive, because, you know, if you got to drive the way I look at it, you should have fun when you're on the road. Now, with that being so, not everything's a sports car. We do have SUVs and people haulers and things like that. So what I consider as fun for those ones, sometimes they are fun, but it's more or less, do I not hate it? You know, because a lot of times you got to get in these things, but is it something like you just have to do, or it's like, hey, it's not that bad, I actually don't mind this? And that's kind of the fun that we're looking for, and that is a good lead-in for our first runner-up. No real particular order on these other than the fact that the SI wins. But I'd like to say that the Honda Pilot was in the running. Now, again, this is an SUV, people hauler, not super exciting, but the reason why I chose it was it really stood out to me. I still think about it from time to time. I'm not in a position to need that big of a vehicle, either for my day-to-day life or the show. This isn't that big yet to where I need a chase vehicle, or I don't have that much equipment or staff or things like that. So I don't really need a big people hauler like that. But if I had to, I'd have to say the Honda Pilot would be one. One, because I'm a Honda person, in the sense that I like the fact that they try to make a good, decent vehicle, half-decent price point, things like that, that is reliable and efficient, you know, similar to Toyota and things like that. I appreciate that philosophy. But I've never been a big fan of the Pilot. I'm not a minivan person per se, and I don't really like SUV things that masquerade as a minivan, which I felt that kind of is. So that's why I appreciated this new generation, pretty much ground up, if I remember correctly, because to me now it looks more like an SUV, because it's now in the competition of things like your Wilderness Outback, Wilderness Edition and things like that. Something that's a little bit more rugged, at least it looks anyway, and I think really it does have a lot more ruggedness to off-road. Not that you're really going to off-road something like that, but it should give you a lot of confidence. But the reason why I really like that vehicle and why it's in the running, besides the fact that it's, you know, more utilitarian looking and less SUV-ish and things like that, was because it drove so small for what it was. Because you get a vehicle like that, you want a lot of space, obviously, right? But for a lot of people, including myself, I find them intimidating. I used to work at a Dodge dealership selling vehicles for years, and most of what we sold were pickup trucks and Jeeps and things like that, and I still really never got that used to parking them and driving them, because they're big and cumbersome. Now, they've come a long way, all of them have, especially with the cameras and sensors and things like that, but some of them still drive pretty big and can be intimidating. I just thought of this right now. As much as I like the vehicle, the Wagoner, the Grand Wagoner, perfect example. Amazing vehicle, super luxurious. It's definitely in the league of Jaguars now and things like that. But I actually had to get the salesperson to park it because I got back and I'm like, I'm not comfortable with parking this thing, because I just couldn't. It was just too much. Whereas that Honda Pilot, it drove really small. That's a lot to do with the new suspension and the geometry and the tuning of it and everything else, and the steering and whatnot. But yes, they have done a lot of effort to make sure that the vehicle is everything it always was: very practical, very efficient, half decent on gas. You're probably like 20 miles per gallon on average for something that big, and it's naturally aspirated V6. It's zippy. You can tow stuff with it, like a little bit of stuff and things like that. It's a great vehicle, but the fact that you can get around on that without feeling like you're gonna crash into it every 2 seconds or somebody else's, and all the nerves that go along with it, I think that's the reason why it was in the running. Now, with that being so, very similar, the BMW X7. For all the same reasons I just said with the Honda Pilot, except for the fact that, you know, you're going, instead of, you know, high 40s to 60-something thousand dollar vehicle, you're now, you know, in the low 100s to the 150s, 160s probably, depending on all the options. Now, with that being so, as you said, you're going to get everything that that Honda has as far as practicality and how well it drives and how small it drives, and that's really what I took away from that vehicle. But you're also going to get like $100 grand worth of technology, because it is incredible. You know, that vehicle's got basically 100 more horsepower, 100 more torque, pound-feet of torque. It's a second and a half, 2 seconds faster to 0 to 60, even easier to get in and out of. Beautiful screens, beautiful, like it's a BMW, right? But I think if you're just looking for something that, if you're in that price point, instead of the Honda, but you like what I just said about the Honda, then you'd like the BMW. Now, the next one I want to talk about that was in the running was the Kia EV6 GT. Now, I'm not a big electric person. I'm not anti-electric. It's just, you know, as far as the philosophy of the show goes, which is you got to have some fun when you're driving. A lot of the EVs are very generic, and they're lifeless in the sense of there's not a lot of sound, there's not a lot of vibrations, things like that bring a lot of driving engagement for people that are enthusiasts, that actually like getting behind the wheel, right? But that is why I liked the Kia EV6 GT, because out of all the electric vehicles I've done so far, including the Porsche Taycan, which was awesome, by the way, but it's also $200,000 awesome, it was the first one, including that Porsche, to where I really, really felt like there was some hope for enthusiasts in the future, if it turns into an EV world and they don't let us have any ICE engines anymore, even with this new synthetic fuel and things like that. So if it does go pure EV, it did give me a little bit of hope that there is going to be some fun for people that enjoy driving, because you know, they call it the Lamborghini Urus competitor, and it kind of was, in the sense of, yeah, it was fast, 0 to 60 in 3-point-something seconds, but again, that's kind of where the fun gets taken out, because it's really impressive numbers, but it didn't feel that fast compared to an ICE engine, because you get all that noise and the vibration and just the way that the power kicks in. You know, it will put you back in your seat sometimes and things like that, where you don't necessarily get that experience, you know, with an electric vehicle. Yet this was a little bit different. It did feel like the Lamborghini Urus, and what I mean by that, it was, I don't know, like, what is it? Is it an SUV? Is it a car? I guess that's what a crossover is. I mean, I usually hate crossovers. It's like one or the other. But if I'm honest, I kind of like it. It's different looking, but it's a good different looking. And like the Lamborghini Urus, it looks serious, and it really is. Like, the doors on that thing were really heavy, and just the materials they chose. I'm pretty sure it's got the Elantra end seats out of it, some very sporty seats. You know, the bright brake calipers. They did all the little. Kia and Honda are always good at that type of stuff. They're very good at marketing and putting packages together and things like that. But you could see some engineering effort went into that. Like, the steering wheel had little vibrations, but not like, oh, this is a Kia from 10 years ago. No, this is a good vibration. Yeah, I don't know. And just the way that it handled, the way that the acceleration picked up, the little spaceship noises it made, it really, like I said, like, we don't want to go on and on about it, but for an electric car, I really, really enjoyed it, and it had a fair amount of practicality, like that Porsche Taycan. You know, like, is it as practical as a lot of those other crossovers? Probably not, because of the way that the batteries are packed in there and things like that, but you're definitely going to be able to use that day to day for the most part. And one thing I liked about that is Kia did put in the more modern 800 volt architecture. So on a vehicle like that, it does have different settings, so you don't use all the power, but if you do have it in its sportiest setting and you are using all that 500 and something horsepower, well, what it will do is manage that, so it will be a lot better on saving some of that range, and when you do use it up, you're going to be able to charge it a lot faster. So, you know, they kind of did a good thing on that. So now, drum roll, we're moving into the fun vehicles that are really part of the philosophy of this show. So it really came down to two vehicles for me, which was the Mazda Miata RF, and really it doesn't have to be the RF. I just personally like it because to me it reminds me of the roof is up of my BRZ here. And I'm a coupe person. Anyway, it was between that and the Honda Civic Si. And it's two vehicles I keep thinking about, I keep daydreaming about buying. One of the reasons why I went with this car over the Mazda Miata, they're very similar price points and everything else like that, is I do have a small family and I do use this as a daily driver. Now, the Mazda Miata does not have back seats. Not that these are super comfortable or usable back seats for adults, but I can use them in a pinch. I did this week. And I can stick a car seat back there. And again, the people that go back there seem to enjoy it. But yeah, it is at least practical where you can't even really recline a seat on the Mazda Miata. But what that Mazda Miata does really well, and the reason why I keep thinking about it, and it, in many ways it was my top pick, but it just, you'll understand in a minute when I give you some more details. But it really is. They say that the Mazda Miata is the answer, and I never really understood it before. I don't know why I was against the Mazda Miata, but once Mazda let me borrow it, thank you Mazda, I really enjoyed it after that week. And because it's everything that my car, my BRZ is, and I have the good BRZ too, like with the Brembo brakes and the Sachs dampers and the, you know, all that stuff, right? But and it is very engaging, and I do have little vibrations, and it did win Car of the Year, you know, from the big man, you know, from Top Gear and things like that. Like the BRZ, FRS, all those cars are awesome, but they're no Mazda Miata, because that Mazda Miata has even more vibrations in that shifter and in the steering wheel, and you feel even more in your bum, but not in an unrefined way, not in a, oh, this thing, like I said, Kia Hyundai from 10, 15 years ago. No, you can tell that it's been engineered, especially with Mazda. That is their claim to fame, is driving engagement and fun. And I can tell you that that car is everything that people say it is and more. And I'm still trying to figure out ways of using it as a family vehicle, because I really did like it that much. But because you can't in reality, and it really is basically then, you know, a $40-something thousand second car or a toy, then it's a lot of money. And I think that's really why I chose the WRX last year, and again, why we're leaning towards the Si this year, and why I couldn't pick the Mazda Miata as much as I really liked it, was the fact that nowadays, with everything being so expensive, like the average price of a vehicle in the country I live in is over $50,000. That is a lot of money for anyone, and you know, it's not everyone can afford something like that, especially as a daily driver. And one of the things that I like with that Honda Civic Si is the fact, and the WRX from last year, is, yes, again, you know, just kind of rolls off the tongue, $37,000, something like that, Canadian plus fees and tax. You think, oh, that's not too bad, because it's well below, it's almost $20,000 below average. But again, you work out the payments on something like that, and for most people, it is going to be a stretch purchase. And if it's going to be a stretch purchase, and you are somebody that enjoys driving, well, the Honda Civic Si nails it. It really, really does. It is one of those vehicles where it does everything just right, and it's going to give you confidence as well, because you're probably going to have to pay for it for a while. So it's going to be one of those vehicles that, you know, you really enjoy the look of, you enjoy getting behind the wheel of, so it makes that payment more easy to stomach and to pay for, so to speak. But you also know that you're going to be able to use that vehicle. It's got a lot of practicality. And not only that, but being a Honda, likely it should last a long time and give you good fuel economy along the way. And that's one of the things with that Mazda Miata and this Civic Si that is better than my BRZ, even though my BRZ is amazing. It's not bad for a little sports car. But those two are going to run you, whereas maybe on the highway I might get lucky and get, you know, mid-30s miles per gallon with this little thing in my BRZ. Those are going to give you in the 40s, no problem, on the highway, and they're probably going to give you in the low 30s all the time, you know, within reason, whereas I'm not getting that. So, you know, and chances are, even though the Subaru and this engine here is very good, long lasting, and I got both port and direct injection, again, that Honda is probably going to be a really, really good, reliable engine. And one of the things that I liked with it too, similar to this and that WRX, is they've engineered in some fun. Like you listen to that engine, yeah, part of it's fake, but there's a little rumble to the exhaust, and I like the fake noise, and you can tell that some real effort was put in there. And you know that 1.5 liter turbo, it's not a ton of power. You're probably around 200 horsepower if I remember correctly, and just shy of 200 pound-feet of torque. But I was blown away. I knew the Honda Civic was a light car. Like this car here, my little BRZ, you're looking at probably 2,800 pounds. That Mazda Miata was probably 2,500 pounds. Whereas that Civic, it looks giant. That thing is almost the size of my a friend of mine. He used to have a Ford 500, I've mentioned, and that's a big car. That's pretty much the same size as the Honda Civic nowadays. But it's still under 3,000 pounds. That's wild. Under 3,000 pounds, and you can feel it. It feels like it. And I don't like front-wheel drive cars at all. Despise them. I had a Dodge Neon RT, and I love that thing, but I always wished I had a WRX, and I probably would have bought a WRX if I could have afforded one at the time, and it was just something. Now, Honda, it's not so much for people if they can afford it or not. It's just they're really good at front-wheel drive, and really you don't need it with that helical limited slip differential and the SI, you know, unless you're doing things that most people wouldn't do with a WRX, like you're adventuring, or you know, you live in super inclement climates and things like that. That Civic is going to be just fine. Put some snow tires on it, but yeah, like the fact that that car is 0 to 60 and around the same as my BRZ here. I have a newer BRZ with upgrades in 2020, so I'm like around 6 seconds, 0 to 60, and that's what that was. But again, that sounds slow nowadays, but it's really fast. You know, 10 years ago that was quick, and it feels quick. And one of the things the Honda has done, which I really appreciate, is it feels zippy. I like the way that 1.5 turbo kicks in, the way that delivers the power. It's kind of very refined, but still got a little bit of a kick to it for some fun. You know, I don't know. Some of the turbos now are just a little bit too refined as far as I'm concerned. And that was one thing that I took away from the Honda, is the fact that, I don't know, I like refined. I don't know, I just talked about how I like the Mazda Miata for not being that refined because of little vibrations and things like that. But that Honda was super refined, almost like a luxury car. Yet somehow with the noises that they've kept, and just how the clutch feels, not too heavy, not too light, the steering feel on that car, they've put all the right things in there to make it feel refined and like something you want to be in all the time, but also really has that sporty zippiness to it. And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciated with that Honda Civic Si for sure, was just those little details they put in, and the fact that, like I said, you're getting a huge amount of practicality in that car. Is it the coupe or the hatchback thing, sportback, I shouldn't say coupe, sorry. Is it the sportback version like the Type R is built on? No. So you can't do the box test like Yuri and Jacob, and you know, where basically that car is as useful as most SUVs, which is crazy. But for a sedan, you have plenty of room in that Si. No, the back seats aren't the best, but compared to the rest of the vehicle is material choices and things like that. But again, that's how they keep the price down on that, and it's still plenty comfortable, and you've got plenty of space, and it's a lot more convenient than something like the BRZ at a similar price point for getting kids into the back and things like that. So much appreciated. So as we said, we're going to come to a close here, but the real reason why we chose the WRX last year and the Honda Civic Si this year as our review or car of the year is because of the fact that both those companies recognize the fact that prices are going up. Their bread and butter customer is their enthusiast, because it is their word of mouth advertiser for them. And I appreciate that they are still delivering the best that they can, a vehicle that has to have all the different regulatory things and all the different things we think that we need nowadays, plus the things that we probably do, like a lot of the safety stuff. And it is really hard to keep a vehicle that's well engineered under $40,000 Canadian. And the fact that Honda has done that again with the Civic Si is the reason why I choose it as the car of the year, because I can't stop thinking about it, and it's something that I want to get in. It's something that I can use every day. Thanks for watching, and we will see you again next time, and I look forward to an even better 2024 with you.